Hi there. This is Kate Rains, and I want to welcome you to the first lecture for Education 165 Sex Role Stereotyping in Education, Fall 2022. Here's a little self portrait of me that a second grader drew. It looks kind of accurate, actually. I bring it up because I'm kind of trying to approximate having my hands on my hips here, like Wonder Woman. Because did you know there's something kind of amazing that I really find quite interesting? Way back, it's been like, I don't know, at least 10 years, this psychologist, Dr. Cuddy, shared some of her research where she had determined that if you do a power pose, what's called a power pose, and put your hands on your hips, kind of get yourself broad and wide, take up space, women, take up the whole room. If you do that for just 2 minutes, that something amazing happens. You get an increase of testosterone, about 20%, and you get a decrease of cortisol, all those stress hormones, right? About 25%. So by posing like Wonder Woman, power posing, you actually feel more powerful. Kind of amazing, right? So even if you're not more powerful and you're pretending to be more powerful, you do this for a couple of minutes and you really kind of are more powerful, right? And so this is called embodied cognition. And they've done a bunch of research on it. And, so here's something technical right here. On the left-hand side, you see testosterone, which everybody has, increases. What? Well, I'll just say 20% because I'm not going to read those numbers. And there on the right, that your cortisol, that just makes you feel so overwhelmed and nervous, and it decreases. And all of this is just a 2-minute hands on your hip deal. I mean, they've done even MRI brain scans and have noticed the changes. So my question is, where was embodied cognition when I was younger? When I was growing up? That's me on the right. And that's my twin sister in about 1976, believe it or not. What was I thinking about when I was growing up and what I wanted to be, right? I can tell you what I wanted to be in 1965. I was 13, and I remember wanting to be a backup singer when I grew up. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a backup singer, right? But why didn't I want to be Diana Ross? She's on the right. Versus the Supremes, they're on the left. Why did I just want to only be a backup singer? Well, in 1965, when I was thinking about being a backup singer, the Billboard Top 100 songs, that's how they rated it. I don't know how they do it now. 11 out of the top 100 songs were sung by women. 11 out of 100. Another thing happening around the scope of when I'm growing up. 1969, the first astronaut lands on the moon. Now, it's no big deal to you because you get access to everything. But back then, when they were broadcasting this, it was mostly on radio because there wasn't a lot you could record. You could video record, right? Because actually, when the little spaceship went on one side of the moon, it was called the dark side of the moon. Like, there's nothing nothing was happening. We didn't know what was going on. Why wasn't I excited about this? Why did I care? It was kind of a cool thing, right? But I mean, I think it was kind of so I was 65. Maybe I was about 15 or so. So, bratty teenager. But why didn't it move me? Why didn't it resonate with me? I wonder why. First woman that went up to space from America was Sally Ride in 1983. That was pretty exciting. But out of all the space travel, and I haven't done the numbers lately, this is 2020, 566 people have traveled into space, and 65 of them, or about 11.5%, were women. Now, a couple more have gone up since then to the space stations because that's kind of getting active again. But where's the connection for me as a female? Where are those role models for women of color, when it comes to just, okay, we'll just say astronauts. What if I had seen more female astronauts growing up? What would I be doing now? What would my trajectory be? Where would I have gone? What would I have been? Maybe an astronaut? How about a rock star? Not too many women were rocking guitars when I was growing up. So we're going to talk about that a lot in this class. The messages we receive in our society as we evolve, as we grow up, and how we feel connected to them. So what did I do? I entered the gender typical field of teaching. Second, I'm just going to get a sip of tea. Thank you. So here's the deal. When I took the test to qualify to go into the teaching program, it's called the CBES. I don't remember what that stands for. There's 3 sections, and I totally flunked the math section. Well, I didn't totally. I flunked it by 2 points, but geez, it only went up to 7th grade algebra. Would I have been encouraged to try harder at math? I didn't do math. I didn't have to even do it in high school. It wasn't considered important, and certainly it wasn't considered important for girls. But what if I had been asked to try a little bit? Where would I be now? What could I have been? A scientist? An architect? So those messages that we receive in our society, gender biases that we receive in our society, really can stymie us. And it's something that we're going to be talking about in this class. Mostly about this. So this class is an intensive writing class, right? That's why you're here. It's like the only reason you're here, and I get it. It's a requirement for graduation. I'm not offended. But this class is also an education course that's kind of cross-linked with women's studies. So this means that we're mostly going to be looking at things from a feminist perspective. And we're also going to be sure to fold in race and ethnicity and identity in this class when we talk about all of this subject matter. So you're going to do tons of writing. There's no way around it. You're supposed to do 5,000 words, each of you. And I'm supposed to read those 5,000 words, right? So there's lots of that focus. But the content in the class can also be considered sensitive for all sorts of reasons. And so we have to kind of look at that, right? And be respectful and aware of how some of what we talk about impacts certain individuals in our class. And so because this class is written from a feminist perspective, we're going to be talking about feminism a little bit. And it always seems to scare off some students, or they think that it's something that they're not. They're not interested in this. But I think that just about every single person in this class, I'm sure of it, believe that women and men should have equal rights and equal opportunities, right? I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. So that's what feminism is, the chance to have equity for all genders. No big deal. And so a feminist is a person who supports that. Again, not a big deal. So Bell Hooks, amazing, fabulous theorist, educational theorist, a feminist, a writer, an activist. Just so great. She was so fabulous, passed away fairly recently. Just her books are insanely amazing. And I've read them, through my career, and I'm rereading them now because I'm just sad that we lost this great mind. And I'm amazed at how she was able to just pin this stuff down decades ago, right? In terms of education and racism and gender bias. And so she says she sums it up this way, and I think it's a great way to say it, that feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. I love this definition because it so clearly states that the movement is not about being anti-male. Let me just stop this. Sorry, my sister calling. It makes it clear that the problem is sexism, and that clarity helps us remember that all of us, female and male, have been socialized from birth on to accept sexist thought and action. Here's a later photo of bell hooks. So being a feminist or feminism is just a real kind of guideline to being fair and equitable in our society. So let's see. I'm going to give you a couple of terms here, and no need to take any notes or anything like that. Just kind of an overview, and it's a review for some of you for sure. But these are kind of some of the terms and stuff that we're talking about in this class. We're talking about gender roles for sure, sex roles versus gender roles, really. So sex roles are biologically determined, and gender roles, which is like what we consider masculine or feminine, are culturally determined, really. So, and we'll go into that more, so no worries there. We'll go into it a lot. So gender bias just simply is the unfair preference or treatment of one gender over another. And we all know about stereotypes, right? So we just talk about some of the stereotypes that are perpetuated mostly for females, but for men too, because men get a bum deal out of all this gender bias stuff as well. Like that stereotype. And here's a good one. Hit like a girl, I wish, right? So Serena Williams just passing the torch on, or passing the tennis racket on, just right now as I record this, right? Her being in the what is it, the U.S. Open, and I don't know if she got to the third round. I've been so crazy busy, so I'm not sure about that. But wow, what a role model. And the idea that you can be powerful and strong and be a woman. So interesting things there. But definitely, you hit like a girl. Quite the stereotype, right? And then we're going to talk about gender construction again, that whole sex roles and gender roles, and what the difference is between that. Just really briefly, and nothing scientific here, is that when we look at sex, we look at what you were born with, the stuff you were born with, the junk in your trunk. I don't know why I said that, but then, but gender is a construction, and the society society defines what that is and we're influenced by what that is by media, by peers, by parents, by teachers, by everything that's going on in our world, right? So gender is considered learned, and it can be diverse. I mean, now that we're so global and so hooked up to screens and all that, then we're all kind of turning into one big, Western influence world. So I don't know how culturally diverse we can be, but there's pockets, and there used to be, and there still is places where it's more acceptable to express your gender in certain ways. So again, that our whole stereotypes and expectations, what it means to be female or what it means to be male, it's learned. It's just learned stuff, right? But the really crazy part about that is this learned stuff happens so early, and it's not so great for girls. It really isn't. Because so about 2 years of age, boys and girls kind of figure out if they're a girl or a boy. So no worries there if we were equally valued, right? But 3-year-old girls are already, I love this part, highly invested in body image and are eager perpetuators of socially established stereotypes. So they want to, dress like what is considered to be a girl, and they want compliments for that, because they know that's how their value is registered. So, right? Because we know that girls and women are valued by their appearance more than anything else, more than their efforts, more than their brains, more than their strength. And some of that's changing, right? But it's the whole idea that little girls and bigger girls and women still have that rule of thumb that they have to think about their appearance and what's going on there. I love this. I put that together. So I had those they weren't Barbie shoes, but I had those little plastic slippers when I was growing up. So the photo on the lower left, that's a 12-year-old. The photo on the lower right is a 16-year-old. Excuse me. So the deal is, when we look at pink and blue, in the scheme of things, pink hasn't been a girl's color for that long. I mean, back in the 30s, and I don't know, maybe around the 30s, maybe a little bit of the 40s, pink was considered a boy's color. You've probably heard this, right? That it's a derivative of red, which is powerful and strong. So pink was more of a boy's color, and blue's placid, and it's just gentle and quiet, right? And so it was considered a girl's color. And that wouldn't be a big deal if we didn't use them so effectively for marketing, especially the pink, right? Excuse me, especially the pink and now purple. So the deal is, when we look at how we're influenced to be a certain way, if we're female or we're a male, we look at all sorts of stuff, including marketing. And obviously, like 3-month-old babies aren't going to be able to read the script on this. Like, look at the one on the left. For a sweet, powerful girl. No, excuse me, wrong one. On the left, for a sweet baby girl. And then look at the one on the right, for a busy baby boy. So the little rattler pacifier thingy on the left, it's not a pacifier, it's a rattle or teether. It's a diamond ring. It's an engagement ring, right? Put a ring on it. What kind of message is that? I mean, who's soaking that up? The people handling the baby, who's then transferring it for reals. And look at so the boy gets this hammer. What you can do with a hammer, right? You can defend yourself. You can build things. You can save the world with a hammer. The mighty Thor. So again, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but these messages are all over the place. And still, I mean, we're getting so much better in the last, not that long, maybe 10-ish years. Because marketing and capitalism is really powerful, and they want to make that buck. So there's really good ways to hook us in with that, right? But in terms of dresses in the Victorian ages, a sign of prosperity for white boys was, having their beauty shots taken with their finest clothing, and those were dresses. So it's easy to say that we construct gender. We decide what it is, what it's going to be. And, again, maybe in a drop of a bucket, who knows, in, I don't know, 100 years, what it will mean to be a girl or a boy in terms of gender, what it will mean. It's crazy. Okay, so back to embodied cognition, because I just love this stuff. So here we are with Wonder Woman and being more powerful if you just take up more of the room. And as a preschool teacher, that has been a theme that I've used. I didn't even know I was doing embodied cognition. I didn't know it. But there's Grace, and that's Michael on the left. And so I have taught, as a preschool teacher, have taught my girls specifically, in quieter boys, to take up more space, to take up more of the room, right? And Michael's just bugging Grace. And so I'm just a simple thing, like, just put up your hand and say, take care of yourself, Michael. Like, get out of my business, that kind of thing. And those things are very effective, and they work quite well in preschool. There's Jupiter. That's Santo. And another thing I've done in preschool, haven't been doing it in the last couple of years, because I'm doing more outside preschool, which really kind of balances the equity for sure. But I would only let girls sit at the head of the table in preschool. So you're thinking, you are so wacky, like, isn't that just too much? And I don't think it's too much, because it wasn't that big of a deal to kids. They after just a couple times around, they knew that if they were a boy, they weren't going to sit at the head of the table, because guess what? They get to sit at the head of the table for their whole lives. They do. And, it's just a given that, well, not in my family, but it's a given that males sit at the head of the table, right? So I just kind of want to counter some of these messages we receive and try to get infused into kids who get these messages and hang on to them forever, that there's different ways we can move in this world. There's Grace again on the right, and that's James the Third on the left. So my sister, who is on the left, the older picture, Karen, she just was horrified when I was doing this. She just, at first she thought, you're just doing this like baby boot camp, and just, what's the deal? She didn't kind of get it, that I was just trying to feel like girls can have more of the space. Boys come in, and they still do in my preschools, because that's how they're socialized, right? To take up all the space. And it's not because they're jerks. Boys aren't jerks by any means. They've just been given all the tools and all the what is it, permission to take up all that space. They've been encouraged to take up all that space. And it happens all the time. I mean, maybe you can even kind of think about ways that males take up spaces that we don't even think about. I mean, when you're walking down a sidewalk, I don't have sidewalks too much. So I don't have sidewalk practice anywhere up here on the island. In town, there's some sidewalks. But so when you walk down a sidewalk and if a man is walking down the sidewalk the other way, don't you, if you're female, haven't you learned to like move over a little bit? And men, haven't you learned to not really think that much? It's not like you're going to knock someone off the sidewalk, but it's like you get that space. So that's what I was doing in my preschool. And my sister thought that I was just being a little bit crazy. And she's a teacher, so what she did is she worked in special ed, and then she moved over to the kindergarten classroom about, wow, now it's been maybe 15 years. And she started kind of getting what I was talking about when she saw her her kindergarten classroom and how it laid out in the world, right? How that was laid out and what she needed to do to change it. So with my kids, I have 3, well, they're like adults now. Excuse me, getting over just, I don't know what, not COVID. My daughter Aiden, she was my youngest kid, so she was kind of part of my whole boot camp thing. And I mean, she's got a strong voice. I mean, it's in her anyway, but I got better at giving her the freedom and opportunities to learn how to be in this world in a larger way. My daughter Zoe, she's kind of more like me. You're going to hear me say sorry all the time in here. I need a quarter jar, maybe $1 jar. I'd be rich because I've learned to not take up as much space, even though I'm loud and proud. And you'll hear all about that. It's that I grew up not taking up that kind of space. Miles, who is Zoe's twin brother, he gets to do whatever he wants. And he's not a jerk. I don't mean that. He's not a jerk at all. But he's a white male. And everything just comes to him, right? So when they were both baristas, my twins, Zoe and Miles, in some of their college years and all of that, Miles had no problem asking for a raise. He had no problem going anywhere and saying, yeah, I'd like a little bit more money than that. That was when stuff was more competitive. Way pre-COVID, right? And Zoe would never even think about asking a raise. And she was working like at this one coffee shop that was like hell on wheels. And she never would, and took on so much, she never would think about asking for a raise. So I know that your generation is better at it, but I just, guys, especially white guys, they can like go in and get whatever they want, right? So there is my kid. So I'm talking in this class a lot about the messages that we all receive and what if we gave not only kids, like everybody, better messages, right? Better messages and bigger messages, right? Just big. Whew. And here is a more reflective and representative Wonder Woman, right? So I started with the white Wonder Woman because that's what was happening, but like we're evolving, and we are giving bigger messages, more inclusive messages to our population for sure. And that's what we need to do. And that's kind of just the intro to this whole class is kind of some of the things we're going to dip into. I mean, it's a lot about, this class is about schools and what's going on in schools, but it's about what's going on in our society as well and the impact of gender bias. So I'm happy that you're here, and I'm available for any of your questions and concerns that you might have during this class. Don't want to offend anyone, but certainly want to kind of tackle some of the subject matter that is happening right now in River City, right now in our world, right? We can do that through this class. And I'm excited about that. So thanks so much for coming along.